then they came out and they said, what are you not telling us? Because we got the same results and they don't make sense. And she said, do you have an open mind? And the doctor went, okay. And Shakti Mai said, I've been drinking my urine for 30 years. And the doctor was right away made the connection and said, oh, you've been doing HRT on yourself. You've been doing hormone replacement therapy. Now your results make sense.
Welcome. Today on Sex, Lies, and Menopause, we have Megan Macdonald, who is working with a bunch of modalities, but primarily Shivambu and the Dalian method, which we probably won't have time to go into, but it's something very cool. And another time, I'd love to hear more about it. And I'm just so delighted to have Megan here. She's been working with Shivambu, which is, she'll explain in her terms what it is, for 11 years, right? 11 years?
Actually 12 now. February is when I started. So it's 12 years now.
Congratulations. Wow, that's amazing. So I know that you've got a PhD and you did a dissertation on the belief.
Yeah. The performance of belief.
The performance of belief. And so you've got yoga training, you've got health coaching, you're cosmic and an academic. And I just so delighted to have you today. And would you like to share anything more about your background that you think would be helpful for people?
So yes, it's one of those things where when you don't start out life thinking I'm going to end up taking this path. And it's been a lot of walking through the door that opens for me. And interestingly, having done the academic work and looking at the performance of belief and how humans perform the belief that they have, when I say belief, it means something related to the spiritual, the transcendent, the transformative, the ineffable, and the spiritual, like any of those can go with the performance of belief. So that's where my research was looking, but in the West. So I was looking specifically at the Western culture that I was raised in, because there's been so much done on so many cultures around the world, and in a very academia comes out of a Western lens, and it says everybody else is other. Everybody else is different than we are. They're the heathens. We're the normal ones. Like that, if we want to take it way back.
Uh-huh.
And so part of my interest was to look at the traditions that I had grown up with to some degree. I ended up looking at a range of religious traditions that weren't all mine, but they were things that were much closer to me than, for example, growing up in Java and having Javanese ritual. Do you know what I mean? Like they were ones that I could identify. I knew what the symbols meant. I knew what was going on. So part of what's interesting about that is where life then took me. It was very much into various aspects of what do people do because of what they believe, and how does what we believe influence our spiritual state, and how does that influence our health? And there's so much where people talk about, oh, I have limiting beliefs and I have to work on my limiting beliefs. I have shadow issues. I have to work with my shadow. And that's another way of saying I have beliefs that are running in the background. And those beliefs get there because of conditioning, society, family, history, genetics, like the political state that we're like of the world that we grow up in. There's all sorts of things that we take on. And interestingly, you mentioned Shivambu. One of the ways that culture decides who it is and who it isn't is by defining the other and saying, we're this group because we're not that group. And we make friends or enemies depending on who wants to control what's going on. So if our leaders at whatever time in history want to control us, one of the biggest ways they do that is with disgust. Those other people are disgusting. We're not like them. They eat this, we don't eat that. Right? And it can be something as benign in a sense as saying they eat meat and we don't eat meat. Or they eat pork and we don't eat pork. It could be something that really on the surface, we're all like, you're all eating meat. Like, why is one meat so much worse than the other meat, right? But that could be a reason. In this case, Shivambu is the Sanskrit word for urine. And urine is a major taboo and way to bring up disgust. and have people be disgusted by something and go, ooh, those people don't clean their hands, right? That's disgusting. Well, it turns out it's one of the biggest cons in history that urine is dangerous or
Right.
wasteful or dirty or a problem.
Yeah.
And I'm sure someone is already listening going, what is she talking about? Um, I usually start with the womb because it's a really easy way to just go, it cannot be wasteful or dirty or a problem because guess what? Fetuses pee in the womb starting at about week 8 to week 11.
Right.
And by week 16 to week 20 of gestation, it's basically taken over as the source of most of the amniotic fluid.
Amazing.
If urine was detrimental to human life, and not just life, but thriving, because a fetus needs so many things to go right in order to be born.
Mm.
Like it's insane the number of things that can possibly go wrong in fetal development. If urine was going to inhibit any of that, if it was not a absolutely fantastic thing to have in the womb, it would be a major design flaw,
Yeah.
like catastrophic. None of us would be here.
Right.
And not only do babies pee in the womb and they're swimming in their urine, because by the time like they start peeing, like, yeah, week 8 to week 11, and it's not, doesn't even look like a human at that point, but it can pee, which is interesting.
Right.
By the time it gets to somewhere around 9 months, it's swimming in mostly urine. And it's they well, part of the things that then happen are that if the fetus doesn't pee, the lungs don't develop and the fetus dies, or it dies shortly after birth because the mother will still keep it alive, but
Mm.
when it's born it can't breathe. Its
Mm.
lungs don't function. So it's not just that it's swimming in the urine, it's bringing it in through its nose, it's all in its sinuses, it's in its lungs.
Mm.
um, a lot of the tissues of the body don't develop if the urine isn't there.
Amazing.
So this is part of saying we've been sold a what's the saying? It just jumped out of my head, like a
A bad bill of goods or something.
yes, yeah, false bill of goods, whatever. It's like
Yeah.
we've been sold something that's not true.
Right.
So urine isn't the problem. Now, there's all sorts of discussions we could get into, but what about this like thing that rarely happens? So what about this thing that rarely happens? So if somebody really wants to do that, they can do the research. It's all out there in science. But generally speaking, what urine has going for it as something that helps our bodies to heal, thrive, and for us to know ourselves better. So there's a physical component of it's incredibly good for skin. Absolutely amazing. If the only thing you ever use it for is to put it on your skin for dry skin, for cuts, for abrasions, for itches, for bug bites, for that's enough. You've just discovered something that is free and you produce, and your skin will love it. And you won't smell funny. That's the other thing. You won't smell. The ammonia that you smell breaks down because it's on pavement or it's in cotton clothing, but it absorbs into the skin. There's no problem. The other side of it is the spiritual side. And this is the side that people discover more and more over time when they do this practice, because most people come to it for a physical reason. And the spiritual side really is then about the fact that this liquid is you. It is not just a bunch of metabolites or chemicals, because urine has over 3,000 detectable endogenous chemicals in it. Chemicals in the sense is not a bad thing. Like potassium is a chemical.
Right.
That's what I mean by chemical. So like every hormone you produce, so like your thyroid hormones, you produce them, they're in your urine. They're detectable in your urine. Every antibody for a cold that you have is in your urine. Stem cells are in your urine that you are producing. Now, when you're just drinking stem cells, is it going to go directly to the one spot in your body that needs all the stem cells? I don't know. But the urine itself has over 3,000 chemicals in it that our body produces every day. And it doesn't mean that every single day, or I'm going to say every day, That many are detectable. Do we produce every single one of them every day? Could somebody detect them all every day? Probably not.
Right.
But the point is that even on every given any given day, if there are 1,000 of them, that's a lot going on in urine. So it's a highly complex biofluid. In fact, there are scientists who are quoted as saying it's probably the most complex biofluid, more complex than blood, more complex than cerebral spinal fluid. That's what some people have said. So it's got that going for it. But
Yeah.
then add to it, it's water.
Mm.
And it's not just water. If you've been doing any looking in the last couple of years, you'll see that people are all up about what type of water they're drinking.
Right.
Okay.
Structured water is the big deal.
So urine is structured water. Yeah. And it's structured by your kidneys for you to
Mm.
be bioaccessible to you. Now, it's also bioaccessible to any human. So, like anybody's urine is bioaccessible to the next person. And urine has this amazing ability to go either you made me, I'm going to jump into your body and I'm going to do exactly what's needed because you made me and I know what to do. Or urine will also go, oh, okay, this is human skin. This is a human system. And it's like, I'll do my thing. So there seems to be, it can both work with someone else and it can work with you. I do generally go with it's better to work with your own urine as much as possible. But I bring that up just to say, like, if your kid gets a cut,
Yeah.
it's okay to put your urine on the kid's cut because
Right.
the urine's not going to go, oh no, I'm on a foreign body. The urine will go, oh, skin.
Right.
And it knows what to do.
I actually put my urine on a dog that was scratched by a raccoon and
Mm.
took it to the vet, and the vet was like, it's fine. So I was just like house sitting, dog sitting this. Anyway, so yeah, I was like, whoa, this stuff works.
Yeah. So when you say the vet said it was fine, the cut was fine, the scratch was okay.
Yeah, like there was no need for any else. Like the mother with the parent of the dog was very concerned, and the vet was like, nope, this is fine. This dog is, it didn't say anything about any infection or anything.
Right. And so you know a bit about urine and why it would do that.
Yes.
Do you want to share?
Oh, just well, just what you just said is that it will just help disinfect, or it will help, what's needed. I mean, who
So,
knows if there
yeah.
would have been an infection without the urine, but my instinct was, this is what I can do for you, dog, right now.
Yeah. And
Right?
so this is one of the things, urine is one of the most studied biofluids in the world. Like it has been studied in academic journals since there were academic journals to study it. So there are things going back in the Lancet, for example, and like the New England Journal of Medicine and the like major ones who studied not people who drink their urine. That has not been studied because no one's interested because you can't make money.
Right, right.
But what they do is they'll go, well, what's in urine? And they will extract different things and then they will look at that and go, what does this do? What function does it serve?
Uh-huh.
And then if there's a way to make money off of it, then they'll find a way to do that. So one of the things that has been studied a lot are what are the things that make urine antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, antispasmodic,
Right,
antiseptic.
right.
And so when you have a cut, whether it's on a human or another mammal like a dog, why will it help with a scratch or anything where the skin has been broken?
Mhm.
Well, it's antiseptic. Just right off the top, it's antiseptic. So if you're not gonna, if you don't have cream or you don't want to use whatever it is, it's going to kill or whatever it needs to be, or say kill. It's going to rebalance the skin microbiome
Mm.
at the site. Let's put it that way. It's going to work with what needs to happen.
Mhm.
Then, depending on what's there, it's antimicrobial. So, what sort of microbe are we dealing with? Are we dealing with a bacteria or a, now I'm going to say bacteria and virus. Some people believe in terrain theory, some people believe in germ theory.
Right,
I'm much more of a terrain theory person, but I'm going to use the words like bacteria and viruses because we understand what those mean.
right.
So that's just to put that out there in case someone's going, you know,
Yeah.
Does she not know about this? No, I know about the discussion, but this is an easy way to keep talking about it.
Right.
So this is what we see over and over again, that if there's anything on the skin, urine just seems to know what to do with it. And you end up with less scarring, no scabbing, depending on what it is. The
Mm,
skin that comes in and heals seems to be much stronger.
mm,
Urea is one of the main reasons for this. And urea is it's bactericidal. It kills bacteria flat out. It just seems to know what to do. There are so many studies that have looked at what urea can do and what it can work with, including killing like tuberculosis, um, killing staph infections, working with gangrene.
mm.
Like these
Wow.
are healing with urea is quite amazing. And when you're using your own urine, it's not just urea, you're getting all this other stuff. So
Right.
there's an example. So we just jumped right into what is Shivambu? It's urine
Yeah.
therapy or urine practice.
Right.
Self in German, it's called eigene Urine Therapy. And eigene is self urine therapy or auto urine therapy. So like it's yours is
Right.
the idea. English, it's a little clunkier to say, but it's self urine practice. And the Sanskrit word Shivambu it has two words in it. Shiva, which is Lord Shiva, who's one of the trifecta of the Godhead. So, and same as in Christianity, you've got the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit idea. They have a three-part or tripartite God as well. And Shiva is the last, is the of the three. So the first is the I'm going to say the word just popped in my head. It's like originator, and then there's the sustainer, and then there's the destroyer in how it works.
Okay.
And Shiva's the destroyer. But Shiva's also the god of consciousness, awareness, and auspiciousness. So you take the name of God and you combine it with Ambu, and Ambu is water. In this case, we're talking about water of the body.
Yeah.
So you have divine God, water, holy water, water of the divine, water of God. You can use different ways to do it, but you've also got, because it's Shiva, you've got water of consciousness, water of awareness, water of auspiciousness. And my teacher, Shakti Mai, she's taught yoga in Vancouver for 20, 25 years, something like that. And I didn't live in Vancouver, but I trained with her. And she had been doing, when I met her 12 years ago, she'd been doing urine therapy for 30 years. So she's now up to like 42 years of doing this. And she radiated. And one of the things that she always said was, urine goes hunting. So be aware that if you start to work with this, it will go hunting and try to find the things that are not in balance. It will try to bring greater balance into you. And that's the aspect of Shiva being the destroyer.
Mm.
It will go and hunt and destroy that which is not of you.
Mm.
And that's where we get into the spiritual aspect
Mm.
of it. Why did I say it was spiritual? Because it's all these physical things we already mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But when I say it's you, it's going to try to find the things that are not you. Because when you drink it or you put it on your skin or you use it for an enema, you're putting more of you into you. So now you have a bigger field. It's easier to hold more of your own energy. And structured water, going back to why we're talking about how potent water is, structured water is known to hold an electrical charge, and that electrical charge has an let's say an aura, for lack of a better term to put with it, but it has a field, and that field, it gives us electricity. We're electrical beings. We need that to thrive. A lot of people, especially when they're sick, it's hard for them to hold a high electrical charge. And the body's working really hard. It's using a lot of its energy to try to, again, rebalance or heal whatever's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And when we put a highly charged biofluid that we created ourselves back in, and the body can just take that energy without needing to figure out, what is this? What do I do with it? Is it good for me? Is it not good for me? How do I get the energy out of it? It goes, oh, I know you. I just created you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like recharging the battery immediately. Every other thing that you've ever put in your body as wonderful and gorgeous as they are, like I love eating the plants out of my yard, dandelion greens in my salad, and um, milk thistle leaves in summer for teas and different things. Like plant medicine is amazing. This whole planet is full of things that nourish us and keep us alive and are just beyond beautiful. But your body still has to figure out what it is.
Right. It's very efficient, urine.
Yeah.
Right.
How did you come to this in terms of like how easy or hard was it to find this information that urine might be interesting for menopause?
I've explored urine 3 times. This is the third time, and this is the keeper. This is the like, okay, we're on, we're in, we're good. And the main reason is because I found you and your friends doing this amazing Zoom together, a few Zooms, and I was just blown away about the cosmic and you guys mentioned, actually, you confirmed. I had a feeling that if it's good for everything, it might also be good for hormones and menopause. But I think one of you said, maybe it was you that just said, oh yeah, your teacher said something about it's natural HRT or something like that. And I was just like, I'm all in now. You better believe it. So in a nutshell.
Yeah. So that was part of what happened. So 12 years ago in January, February, I was doing yoga teacher training. So it was 2013 and I was doing this yoga teacher training, and the teacher in that case was just somebody asked a question about, because they knew she did urine therapy. I didn't. I'd never met her before. I just found this teacher training and did it. A classical hatha yoga teacher training. And she said, I don't have time to teach about that in the 200-hour. I do a full module in the 300-hour teaching if you want to do the advanced teacher training. But she had just said, if you want to start, rub a few drops on the back of one hand. And after 3 days, like every time you pee, just try to put a couple drops on and don't scrub it off with soap. And then after 3 days, check your hands. And I did that. And the back of my left hand, I had very dry skin. If you're someone with oily skin, this might not be the test for you.
Right.
But I had very dry skin and it was winter. And so in winter, things tend to be drier anyway, even in Vancouver. And my hands were completely different. It was so obvious that my left hand was happy and liked it, and it was thriving and it's supple and good color and just not dry, not scaly. And my right hand was still dry. So I was sold in terms of moisturizer, free moisturizer that worked immediately. Fantastic. Then I did the 300-hour training with her 8 months later. So August, September, October of the same year. And that's when she did the whole thing. And she told the story. Now, I'm not sure when she told the story. She may have told the story when we were in Vancouver. This is what I don't remember where the story came in. But the longer training was 8 months later. But I started right away in February of 2013. And she was 52 when I met her. And the year before, she had gone to a women's clinic in Vancouver, and her friends had all said, oh, you have to go to this clinic. You have to get these tests done because you're over 50 and this is what you have to do. So she went and paid for the tests, and they came out and said to her, we think something went wrong. We want to run the tests again. The results don't seem right. And she went, okay. And they ran them again. And then they came out and they said, what are you not telling us? Because we got the same results and they don't make sense. And she said, do you have an open mind? And the doctor went, okay. And Shakti Mai said, I've been drinking my urine for 30 years. And the doctor was right away made the connection and said, oh, you've been doing HRT on yourself. You've been doing hormone replacement therapy. Now your results make sense. Because they were looking for a menopausal, or, I don't know where she was. Maybe she was right on the edge, but, 51, 52, somewhere in there. Whether she was perimenopausal or menopausal, she was in that realm. They're looking for mostly deficiencies in hormone production. Right. And there's other markers that they also look for. I don't know if they were testing bone density and stuff like that too, that I don't know. But once they knew that she'd been doing that, they went, oh, now it makes sense. You have the results of someone who is getting hormone replacement.
That's amazing. They were that open to make that connection. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it just makes me wonder, like, if they got that, why wouldn't they be spouting the benefits of drinking urine. You know what I
Well,
mean? Like,
this is the thing. I mean, like just in terms of the training, like the doctor made the connection, but the doctor had not been trained in this. She
yeah,
didn't know anything about it.
right.
And this is the issue where people go through medical school and they get taught all this stuff. They do however long they get in, depending on which specialty they choose, but everyone learns a little bit about how we grow in the womb. And there's all this stuff about what's in the womb, but nobody goes, but I thought pee was dangerous. Like that, for whatever reason, like that, the training doesn't emphasize how good it is, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
And so then people don't really talk about it,
Well, it's like
but
my
it's right in front of you. Because if you bring it up to somebody, if you bring it up to a nurse or a doctor and you go, well, what about this? And you really press them on how does a fetus grow in gestation? I've done this with a few people and they sort of have this moment where they're like, well, yeah, I guess that's true.
so yes, it's like a disconnect. Yeah.
That's not, nobody emphasizes it.
No.
And I was 35 when I had this training with her. And so I was at a stage where I was interested in this idea of what would happen if I did this. Would this change any outcomes for me? Now, here's the thing. We only have one body. So I don't have a control. I don't have me who didn't do urine therapy
Yeah.
next to me
Right.
going, what would I have been like if I didn't do this?
Right.
I don't know. Um, and now that I'm 47, I'm in that realm where all of my female friends, whether they're to be fair here too, whether they're 38 or 55, everybody's talking about menopause.
Right.
And even the ones who are in their 30s, their doctors are saying to them, if they get regular headaches, it could be perimenopause. If they, it's like any symptom a woman gets, if you're not pregnant, which is also, could you be pregnant? Like, let's just, it's like if you have anything in your body that you notice, maybe you're pregnant, first of all. And secondly, if you're old enough to then have anything about menopause, well, maybe it's that, right? Let's just throw it in that direction of it's a woman's problem.
Right.
And at the moment, my experience is that I think the urine therapy has been helping keep things balanced.
Well, you look so young, Megan.
Thank you.
You look amazing.
So, I mean, I've always been young looking, to be fair, too. Like, I wasn't an old looking 15. I was a young looking 15. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
But your skin and your hair, everything you just exude. Yeah. Great.
yeah.
You.
And so this year I had a female hormone test done for the first time,
Okay.
and they were all in the range of normal. Now, so a few were a little on the low end of normal, but they were still in normal. Like nothing. And then I had some more testing done. And just because I'm interested, I want a baseline. And because I've been doing this urine therapy for so long, and I'm a researcher and an academic, I want to be able to go, what's going to change in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, you know?
Right.
Um, so I did get some stuff done. And when I went to the naturopath, when she took everything, so like my thyroid, normal. And that's another one throughout my life. So many of my female friends,
Oh yeah.
not a normal thyroid. And I'm not like and a lot of them also get told like if they're on the low end, they still get told they're normal. I'm not on the low end.
Ah, beautiful.
Like I'm in the middle.
Wow.
So if the thyroid is normal and the female hormones are normal and your cycle is still normal, she's like, you're not in perimenopause.
And by all normal standards, you should be.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, I also checking with my mother. My mother does not remember when she went into menopause. Very helpful that she doesn't remember. But she wasn't early. We both know that. Like she didn't go into perimenopause early. So the chance and my body's tended to follow hers. Like she started her cycle when she was 13 or almost 13. I also started at almost 13. Like whether it was the exact month, but like we were both within like 3 months of turning 13.
Mm-hmm.
That one she remembered. So that's something in terms of like, I know my body's sort of followed what hers did. And so, but she also wasn't super late. So it's not like she didn't hit it till 60. Like she was definitely sort of not early, but not crazy late either. So somewhere in the middle. So I was assuming I might see changes somewhere in the middle range.
Yeah.
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 And so far, nothing.
Fantastic.
And that's what Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, like they're all trying to keep our cycle going as long as possible because all the way the body functions in terms of nutrients, minerals, the delivery, the ability to absorb, all of that is easier when you still have a cycle.
Mm.
And it's not that menopause is bad. We're not saying menopause is bad. It's a natural, normal thing that happens, and nobody should be afraid of it.
Right.
But there is a shift that makes things a little more, the balance is different.
Yeah. And you also had some other inspiration, right? About a family member possibly regarding.
Mm. So this is one of the things in terms of how women talk about menopause. And I had heard both women in my family, but also, on in pop culture, on television shows, whatever. But I had people that I personally knew who said things like menopause almost destroyed their marriage, right? That it was only when they started doing hormone replacement therapy that saved their marriage because menopause was so destabilizing.
Right.
And not just destabilizing physically, but emotionally. So that it meant that trying to be in the marriage they had been in no longer felt feasible or easy or possible. Like it really disrupted their life. And I thought, that sounds extreme. I don't want that.
Right.
So again, it's like, how is this given? Again, it's like one person. You just need one person who tells you a good, what happened. And it was, I only had my yoga teacher tell me this, but it made a huge impression on me of going, you mean that doesn't have to be difficult? Menopause, the whole perimenopause, menopause doesn't have to be a difficult experience because that's what she was describing.
And you were already getting the fear of menopause at 35 years old. Like it was
Yeah.
already filtering in, if not earlier. So it's just so intense, the programming and the fear that gets in there and like, oh my God, I've got to do something. And oh, I should do HRT or whatever,
Yeah.
bioidentical, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And so one of the things too that if I take it back further, so when I in general in my life, my cycle has always really been easy compared with people who have all sorts of symptoms. A few times a year, there's some bad cramping, and I'd rather stay in bed all day. Or maybe I hug a hot water bottle to my abdomen twice a year, like in terms of for a day.
Which is still
Um,
something I just have to say, because I didn't even have that. So
right. But like,
yeah, that's not
it's like,
bad.
no, like I never had to miss school. I never had to miss work. I
Right.
never, and it wasn't because I was popping pills to make it okay to go to work
Right.
either. Like it would be very, very rare for me to take like an anti-inflammatory or something. Like so rare, I probably have done it less than 10 times in my whole life that I would have done that during my cycle.
Yeah.
Maybe less than 5 times. Like it's just not something that's what I mean by really nothing to complain about.
Right.
No heavy bleeding, no like very regular, generally speaking. Um, and actually, if anything, I often had 11 instead of 12 or 13. I would often skip a month. Or not even like skip a month, but it would be that my cycle was like 32 days.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it would naturally space itself out so that I wouldn't have like there's 13 moons a year. I wouldn't have 13. I'd
Nice
have one
practice.
less, right?
Yeah.
So, but that was like stable for like a decade, 32 days. Absolutely like clockwork, just not 28, which 32 is again, different people have different ways of working. All that to say, I started working with fresh urine when I was, let me see, topically when I was 35. I started drinking it when I was 36, just because of the way my birthday landed that year. I noticed when I started drinking urine that my cycle got easier. Like it softened a bit in a way. So like what I mean by that, my PMS was different. And I felt like any sort of cramping or discomfort that I had was less.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So that happened. And I went, oh, that's nice. And this is backing up what my teacher was saying. It
Right.
made me connect with that. Then, about 5 years later, I started working with evolved or aged urine. That's a whole other topic. It's a massive topic. I take weeks when I teach about it in my courses. And everybody thinks that it must be better. They're just different. So I'm just going to throw that out there. There is no better. And it's much, I did nothing but fresh for 5 years. I think it's really good to get to know your your own fluids really well before you throw more at yourself, because I already said it's like it'll go hunting and find stuff.
Yeah.
So I introduced evolved urine 5 years later, and this isn't something my teacher had taught about. I don't even know if she was doing this, but it was on social media 5 years later. Um, and also to say, in 2013, when I found out about this, it was very hard to find anything on this online.
Yeah.
But by 2015, so like
Mhm.
even 2 years later, 3 years later, there were groups on Facebook. But in 2012, I didn't find anything. For 2013, I didn't find anything. Anyway, so 5 years later, 2018, I started doing the aged. And again, I noticed the same thing happened. I noticed that my cycle got a little easier. So again, PMS went down even more. And it wasn't bad to begin with, but still, I felt a difference. I saw a difference. And again, it felt like the cycle itself, like even the amount of cramping or the amount of like discomfort went down. And it felt like another thing I'll add over the last decade of doing this is that it feels like when I am getting signals, they're clearer. It's like I know what they are more. It's like when something starts to, it's like, oh, yep, I think this is going to start in a week. I can feel it. Like it's as if the communication with my body is clearer than it
Beautiful.
used to be.
Mhm.
So all of that also changed. Oh, I
Mhm.
forgot one step. When I was 26, I stopped eating wheat. I forgot that one. When I stopped eating wheat, my cycle also got better
Right.
because I was super inflamed when I was eating wheat and I had gut issues. And anything that is in the pelvis is going to affect the womb. So
Mm.
if you have leaky gut, if you have inflamed intestines, if you have problems with IBS, if you have whatever, it's going to influence the uterus.
Mm.
So when I got rid of that as well, my cycle. So when I was 26, my cycle got a little better because I stopped eating wheat. When I was 35, it got better with the introduction of Shivambu. And when I was like 5 years after that, like 36 to 41, it got better again.
Mm.
So at every stage, it has gotten better with this. So that's what I've tested. I've
Mm.
tested that out on myself and seen that it helped. A lot of the people who work with me will report the same things. They will come back to me and say, uh, whatever it is about their cycle seems to have changed, whether it's cramping, whether it's PMS, whether it's awareness, whether it's regulating a cycle.
Mm.
A lot of people come and start doing urine therapy because they've heard that it will help to bring about a more regular cycle because of the hormones. So if they're really irregular, that could help. But again, all of these things are in balance. So it's not Shivambu itself, the practice.
Mhm.
It's not like taking a pill. It's not pull this lever. Take the pill, the headache goes away. That's pulling a lever. You go
Right.
from headache to no headache. When we work with Shivambu, it is introducing something that we produced to help bring about whole system balance. And whatever's out of balance first needs to be brought to the surface, seen for its imbalance before it can go into a new balance.
Mm.
So this is the whole, sometimes things get worse before they get better on the healing path. Sometimes there is a flare or a healing opportunity. Some people call it a healing crisis, but a healing opportunity on the way to balance.
Right.
And sometimes things come up that we didn't know were hiding.
Mm.
So people will come and say they want to do urine therapy because of hormone issues. Okay, but then they start drinking urine and they get a rash or they get head colds or they get whatever. And they're like, I just wanted to change my cycle. And the body goes, sure, but you have a history of sinus infections and we're going to deal with that first.
So interesting. I'm experiencing that. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I'm
Mm.
just so appreciating your clarity in explaining all of this so simply and directly and accessibly.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I yeah, I've only started this round. It's been, I don't know, a month and a half. So, and but it's much, I'm doing more urine than I did on the previous go around. So that go around didn't really have huge overt impact. I noticed a little bit, but, and I knew that it was a good thing. So I was willing to do it regardless. But then it sort of fizzled out because it's sort of hard to do sometimes when you're living with other people and or traveling around and this, that, and the other. So I kind of let it sort of shift away. But then I did get my blood tested, and it was like the woman was like, "Your blood is amazing." And I was like, had no clue that it was connected to the urine. I thought it was this energy healing practice I'd been doing, which I'm sure is helping. But now I'm convinced that it's the urine that has played, and I'm so excited to get tested again this summer because I'm just imagining it's going to be so much better. But what am I trying to say? So I've noticed that for me, like for example, when you started with Fresh, how much did you start drinking? Like I'm sure it grew, but do you know how much you were?
So, yeah. So, but this is, I didn't keep notes
Not
at the
that it's
beginning
a
because
right or wrong way to do it for other
no, no, no,
people.
no.
Everyone has to trust their own, which I totally get.
Yeah. So there's a couple things. I mean, part of me wishes I'd kept notes.
Yeah.
Every now and again, I stumble across an old email that I sent to somebody around that time. And sometimes I've said something in an email that I'm like, oh, I must have just started doing that then. Right. Even though I might not say I'm doing urine therapy, I'm like, oh, that was the week. Okay. So I've pieced it together a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, I tried for 6 months to drink it. So let's also throw that out there. I had no problem putting it on my skin. My skin loved it. I loved it on my skin. It was such a revelation. And I tried to drink it over and over and over again, and I couldn't do it. And then I went back into the second level of teacher training with my teacher 6 months later. And we had a break for holiday of some kind in September. And so we had a few days off. And I don't remember what it was exactly, but I was like, I'm going to drink it now. And I don't remember how hard or easy that was. I do not remember that piece at all. But I started drinking it, and it was, I ended up, it was hot where I was, and I was mostly probably eating fruit and salad anyway. And I don't know how this all kind of unfolded. This is the piece where I don't have notes and I don't remember the details, but I ended up having a healing crisis because I think I drank like enough, and then I followed it up with more, and I'd never drunk it before.
Oh,
And it's
wow.
not, and I didn't drink like 2 liters. I don't think I probably didn't drink more than 2 cups, but I'd never drunk it at all.
Uh-huh.
And I was also in the middle of yoga teacher training, which you open yourself up anytime you do any kind of training, which is at all spiritual or whatever, you open yourself up to, let's just redo this person's like entire system and rebuild them from the ground up.
Yeah,
So people have all sorts of stuff come up when they do anything like this.
totally.
And I was apparently just open. So I ended up with a healing crisis, which was a cold, but it was like every symptom of every cold I'd ever had. So it was probably a very low grade fever, like just enough so that everything aches.
Mm.
Not a problem, but you just feel like your bones are aching, your skin is aching, your joints are aching. I had headache, stuffed like filled sinuses, dripping down the back of the throat, sandpaper throat. My eyes hurt. I was blowing my nose all the time. Um, I didn't have any appetite, so I don't even know what I ate for like 3 days. I wasn't trying not to eat because I hadn't started fasting or doing anything like that yet, but I probably had some fruit juice and maybe some salad, maybe even, but I had no appetite. And I mostly just laid down um, and tried to breathe. That was mostly what I was trying to do. And I kept drinking the urine for 3 days because
Oh,
I knew from what my teacher had also said that she was like, if she were to get sick, she would fast on her urine. And so I had that in my head that that would be a protocol. And I
uh-huh.
wouldn't have used the word protocol then, but just that would be something you could do.
Yeah.
Um, and at the end of the sort of 3 days or whatever, I had to get ready to go back to class. And so I did, I think I slowed down how much urine I was drinking at some point. And I went back to class and then I asked her, I was like, so this is what happened. And she went, okay, very good. Now slow it down. Like,
Mhm.
back off, like let your body, whatever that was, now let your body recover from it. That never happened again
Mm.
in conjunction with drinking urine. Like it, I now there are, so there are days and weeks where I'm home and I drink almost everything all day. And then I don't really drink much else because I don't need tea and I don't like herbal tea or whatever. I don't need extra water. I don't need extra liquid because I'm getting my structured water all day from myself and I don't need anything else or very little. And then there's other days where I'm out and I'm not at home and I drink very little of it. But I can go back and forth now.
Mm.
And just because I up my urine intake doesn't mean that I go into a healing crisis. That doesn't happen.
Which is great.
So that's not a permanent state of affairs.
Wow.
But what did I do at the beginning? I think what I remember is for a long time I just drank like my morning urine, whatever that was. Like maybe it was half a cup, maybe it was a cup.
Mhm.
Maybe I didn't drink the first output, but I drank the second output, but it would have been something like that. And I probably wasn't worrying about it the rest of the day.
Right.
That's really probably what I was doing most of the time.
And did you notice? I mean, I guess you'd already had the big healing crisis, so you probably cleared a bunch of stuff and bumped up your health level and felt impacts from it. But yeah.
Well, this is again, I don't remember
Mm.
exactly how that unfolded. What I do see, all of 2013, I was traveling.
Wow.
So this is actually one of those funny things. Everyone who does my courses too, they're all like, "Oh, it's so hard when I travel. It's so hard when I go to stay with someone else or when somebody's visiting me." And I'm like,
Yeah.
I started doing this when I traveled for 12 months. I was only in other people's houses. I was only in other people's spaces.
Right.
And that's when I really started my practice. So
Yeah.
I understand what they're saying. And part of me has no sympathy.
Right. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm traveling. I've been traveling the same as well. But I find I love it when I have the place to myself or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm not saying it isn't easier if you
Yeah.
have the place to yourself.
It can be done though.
But absolutely, because all you need in the bathroom is a cup or a mason jar or
Yeah.
something. And you just have to remember to use it, drink it, rinse it, and put it back.
Yeah.
Nobody walks into a bathroom and says, why is there a cup here? Heaven forbid you want to rinse your mouth after you brush your teeth, or drink some water in the bathroom. Like, so
Right.
there are like the main things that you need to do urine therapy. You need something to catch it. That's it. And
Yeah.
then you want to get trickier, then you can have something that you pour it into so that you can dip your fingers and rub it on your body more easily.
Right.
Or you have a spray bottle that you put it in and you spray it on your body. Or you like, there's different ways to work with it. But I mean, you stand in the bathtub and you apply it and then you get out and you just rinse the bathtub. And again, nobody knows what you did.
Totally.
This is
You're
bathroom behavior. Nobody talks about bathroom behavior.
yeah.
Like we don't think when we stop out of the bathroom, no matter where we are, no one is expecting us to report.
No.
We are allowed to do things in the bathroom that no one wants to hear about.
True that.
So there's this weird thing that happens when you start doing urine therapy and you start to feel like I'm hiding something from people.
Right.
And I have to somehow, am I being honest and authentic if I don't tell them?
True.
But you don't walk out and go, let me tell you about my latest bowel movement. I really think I need to share this with you.
Although I must say there are circles where that, but yes, no, it's true.
Just to say to people, like, if you want to start talking about it, you can talk about it, but you do not need to.
Yeah.
That's
It's
the
hard
point.
not to though, because you want to share. And I mean, I've enlisted My old housemate is potentially interested in
Hmm.
not necessarily drinking it, but heard about the syringe method, and I just feel like so many people could benefit, who are struggling.
That's the reason we want to share. That's the reason.
Yeah,
Because we notice differences. So, well, you asked the question, what did I notice? I know that whatever I noticed, besides the fact that my skin felt great,
right.
I noticed enough that I started doing. Once I started, I've done it every single day since I started. I've never stopped,
Amazing.
and I didn't mean to. This was not
Right.
a goal. I didn't know I'd be doing this years later and talking about it. Um, but it was so obvious that the dry skin I had battled with my entire life
Right.
was going away. Like I had hand cream, body lotion in every room, in every bag, in the car. Like you name a place to have a little thing of cream, I had it everywhere because my skin was so dry all the time. I
Mm,
don't buy it anymore.
right.
It's at the point that in winter, there's a few days because I currently live in Eastern Canada and it was minus 20 Celsius for the last couple weeks, which is unusual here. But like even so, I used to live in Ottawa, where it was might be minus 20 for 2 months at a time.
Yeah.
That I would get kind of in trouble because I'm like, I have not. If you go outside, your face is exposed to minus 20. You can douse yourself in urine all you want. When the face gets hit with minus 20 repeatedly, you might need some extra help.
Uh-huh.
And I get to the point in winter, I'm like, I guess I'm gonna rub olive oil or coconut oil in my face or something, like because it would get so dry from the wind and the cold that I could sit there and just keep applying urine, and I'm sure that would work too. But sometimes you're just like, okay, I just need some help,
Yes, totally.
right? But that's a season specific thing, and there's forced air inside the houses, like everything's just dry. It's Vata season, and it's Vata everywhere if you know Ayurveda at all. So it's just dry, dry, dry.
Yeah.
But even that, it's not like I need to do it every day. Like the Shivambu takes care of my skin. Otherwise, I would have jars of cream, and I don't. And that to me is phenomenal.
Right. That has sold you that it is
That's
working.
what did it at the beginning. And everything else that's come from it since then is just good thing after good thing after good thing. I had sinus infections as a kid, ear infections, tonsillitis. When I stopped eating wheat, like I would get tonsillitis every year. And the year I stopped eating wheat, I had tonsillitis something like 6 times. And they really wanted to take them out, and I still kept refusing. I
You.
stopped eating wheat. I've never had tonsillitis since.
Whoo.
Yeah. But I had 20 years of infections in this area. What's the other reason I kept doing urine therapy? I started rinsing my sinuses with urine instead of water or salt water, and
Right.
I'll cup it in my hand and snort it like this. I've never used a neti pot, but neti potting with it, like people will neti pot with urine. They'll do sprays,
Syringe.
syringe it up, dropper, snort, whatever you want. You can put it up there, put your head upside down and put a dropper in. But
Right.
I had done at that point, like I started doing nasal rinses when I was 16 because of voice stuff, because of choir and singing. So I was really well versed in salt water in my sinuses every day. It would take me a mug of salt water to get out the same amount of mucus that I got from 2 tablespoons of urine. The urine acted like a magnet and it just pulled mucus out of my sinuses. It was faster, it was more efficient, it was less work, and it was room temperature.
Wow.
And I didn't have to worry about the water because with the water, you're not supposed to use water that could have a lot of chemicals or protozoa or anything else in it. So you can't use tap water in a lot of countries. You shouldn't even do it in Canada, really. You should be using distilled water or spray, like something that's been filtered in some way, shape, or form, just because you don't know what could end up stuck in your sinuses.
Right.
And so with urine, I didn't have to worry about it. It's sterile, it's antibacterial, it's antiviral, it's antifungal. Like it's going to clear everything out. And that's what I've seen over and over again. It clears everything out
Have you ever used evolved urine in your nostrils?
every day for 4 years
Oh, okay. Because
without fail. I still use it most days, but I did every day for 4 years. Yeah.
I just started. It's intense, but
you use less, or you mix it with fresh, or you also, it depends on what we are saying evolved is evolved, because evolved could be, by some people's standards, evolved is 5 days. Like that's the minimum,
Right.
4 or 5 days. I'm using 2-year-old right now.
Oh boy. Wow. Cool.
So
Yeah.
this is the thing where it's like the younger it is,
Yeah.
it could be really kind of edgy. It can be harder to use really young evolved because it
Oh.
hasn't hit its stride yet.
Oh, got it. Okay.
It's volatile. I mean, volatile. Like it's still finding itself. Some people say that evolved urine isn't ready for 9 months.
Okay. Good to know.
I find every bottle is different, but they all hit a point. When you start evolving, you'll see a thing on the top and a sediment on the bottom.
Yeah.
And after when and there'll be an odor of some kind which changes over time. And the nicer your Shivambu gets, the better your evolved Shivambu gets. I can't
Ah,
forget to say this. When you first start drinking your Shivambu, it will never be the nicest. It will only get better from there. The
right.
more you drink it, the nicer it gets. The
Right.
more you work with it, the more you start tasting what you eat. Then you start making different choices about what you eat. If you eat, I can tell if I go out to a restaurant and they're not using good quality oil, I taste it the next day. There's a certain taste I know goes with bad oil.
Mm.
And if they're using good oils, it tastes fantastic.
Mm.
No problem.
Right. Right.
So I know
Yeah.
based on how it tastes the next day, which restaurants I'm willing to eat at.
That's so great.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then you're evolved. The first time you evolve it, it's never going to be the nicest jar. That's going to be the weirdest jar,
Yeah.
probably, that you ever evolve.
Right.
And the more you evolve it and the more you work with it, and then you start putting fresh in and evolved in, and your system gets used to the fact that this feedback system and this conversation is happening all the time with who you are, who you were, how you're evolving, what is happening with you. You end up with nicer and nicer Shivambu and nicer evolved Shivambu. So it's a very dynamic, ongoing process.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, there's always more to say.
Yes.
So so if we have a few more minutes before we totally wrap it up, how do you want to wrap it up?
Well, I mean, I'm just delighted because every time I talk to you or hear you, there's new things that come through. And it's exciting to, like, it's evolving like the urine is evolving. And there's so much, of course, more to share. So I'm just in a very happy place with this conversation. But I wonder if there's anything else you would like to share because you have so much knowledge and information and experience with it.
Well, one thing, I know that you're going to be talking with Fiona Gardner as
Yes,
well.
that's right.
And and that partially you mentioned these Zoom calls where me and my posse were having discussions, our gang, as we put it.
Yes.
There's a couple with like, two of us, three of us, four of us, and it's Fiona Gardner, Joanne Humphreys, or Anna, she's also known as Anna, and Darlene Tian have been who's on there so far, just because we did it. We just found time and we had these conversations. And part of what comes out of that is also my experience is mine, but I've been teaching urine therapy courses now for almost 4 years. And part of what's so amazing about them is that everybody's body does something different. And it's only when we hear the stories of multiple people that we get the potency and what can happen with this medicine. If people only ever hear my story, they're not going to know what it can do.
Right.
People who have worked with me have told me about, like, someone had a retinal detachment and she started putting urine in her eye right away. She didn't even know what it was. She just knew it wasn't good.
Hmm.
And when she went to the doctor, they said, "Oh, you're showing signs that this happened, but it's reattached." Like they could tell what had happened, but
Right.
also that it was already okay.
Incredible.
And she's like, it was the urine. She didn't do anything else.
Right.
And she didn't tell them. And back to your point about the blood testing. So Fiona is a microscopist who is versed in studying blood under the microscope at a high definition. And she started looking at urine, and she can tell her own story about that. But
Right.
part of what you see is that what people say is that they start using urine, whether it's topically or drinking it, and they start to feel like there's something, like they have more energy, they have more vitality, they have more of themselves. There's this like thing that feels like it's expansive and it's big, and they just feel expansive. It's really the best word. And what she sees in the urine is exactly that. She sees expansive crystalline structures that just have all this energy moving outward. And that we talk about the energy, urine gives us energy. And she sees when she looks at someone's urine before they start drinking it and then after they start drinking it, she sees the shift in the urine. And she's even looked at people who stopped drinking it or haven't drunk it for a long time. And what the crystalline structure, this expansiveness to it, the energy that's there doesn't go away.
Right.
Or at least it doesn't go away immediately.
Right.
Like, so you start a chain reaction when you start working with your urine. And that in and of itself, it's like it flips a switch.
Mm.
Your body goes, oh, you're going to give me that again. I haven't had that since I was in the womb.
Right. Right.
But it goes, I remember. If you're going to give me that, I know what to do with it. I'm going to do these things that I'm programmed to do when you give that back to me. And you mentioned getting blood testing done. I've had a number of people work with me who they see functional medicine doctors, they get different tests done. And whether if they don't tell the functional medicine doctor or whoever's testing, who is used to them, they'll go, what are you doing? I know you're doing something. I know you've done something. What, like, I can see it.
Right.
Now, some of them are above board and they say, before you test me this month, let me tell you, this is what I've been doing. Other people don't bring it up. They want to see if the person notices, but everybody has said the person notices.
Notices.
And by and large, what they notice is generally a positive direction. However, just to give people an idea again, like one functional medicine doctor to the person he was working with, and the report came back to me, was like, let's say, I'm going to make this up, but let's say they tested 12 things. 3 or 4 were the same as they'd always been. No obvious shift. 3 or 4 were going in a very positive direction that they'd never been able to move. Mm-hmm. These particular numbers, they'd struggled to get them to move, and all of a sudden they're going in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And then another 2 or 3, fewer than the rest, but maybe 2 or 3, are going in what could be seen as a negative direction. Mm. But the functional medicine doctor was wise enough to say, if a process is underway, we need more than 3 months. You need to do this for at least a year. So we can see what if all of this is happening that's really good and we've never been able to get it to do that, then the fact that these look like they're going in the wrong direction might just be a rebalancing moment. Let's give it a second. It's not dangerous. There was nothing dangerous happening.
Right.
But that's also that wisdom to be able to say what's going on. And this is what people have happen. They might start doing urine therapy and they have diarrhea for 3 months.
Right.
That can seem like a negative. Right. But it's mucus. It's buildup of mucus and old stuff in the intestine that's leaving. So, and you can slow it down. Like you can ease off and not have that be so intense. But if you're going to go, these people have come back to me. They're like, I went full in. I'm drinking 2 to 4 cups of urine a day, but I have diarrhea all the time. I'm like, okay, are you okay with that? Can you handle it? Right. Versus, why don't you back it off and not do so much? But most of the people who do that are like, they're just all in type of people and you can't talk them out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. My main thing is I get very tired. And tiredness is an issue I'm working with because of my insomnia for 20 years. So in the sense that it will get highlighted. And so I notice, this is just too much. I got to back off. Right. With you. And I just sort of, but I mean, it's so great that you have all this experience and people can actually work with you and get your input and guidance if they don't want to just wing it themselves. Right. And so that's the beauty of it on the one hand, because like I just found books and I read everything, and then I found groups online and I just read everything and watched every video that anybody was putting out 12 years ago. Or I mean, I would be more like 10 when I first started finding people. And I
I pieced it together over time for myself.
Good.
And now it's way easier. Anyone who's starting now has so many more resources than I did.
Totally. Yep.
So if you're an independent sort,
Yep.
and I am, like I was like, I'm just gonna figure this out. So
Right.
you can figure it out.
Yes.
If you want to have someone to give you some feedback, some perspective, highlight other things to be looking for. There are, like, I do courses, there's other people who do courses. I run a community of people
Oh,
who, like a membership where people who've worked with me, they stay around so that they can continue to talk to each other and learn from each other. And that's what they tell me is the best part,
great.
is when we get on a group call and 10 different people talk about their experience.
That's beautiful.
And
That's
they're so grateful to each other for sharing this. But you need, again, taboo topic around disgust, to bring it back to where we started. You
right.
need a container you trust
Right.
to discuss these things really authentically and get feedback that you know is solid.
Right.
A lot of people, I'll say this, if people go looking now, you'll find Telegram groups, Facebook groups, Instagram profiles of people saying all sorts of things. Lots of people find urine therapy, and within 6 months, they're telling everybody what to do.
Yeah.
And you just have to get good at figuring out who really knows what they're talking about and who's just super excited.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's free.
It's
It
free.
was, you've done it. You knew it in the womb. Every single human has drunk their urine. All of us. So, it's there for you when you want to try it. It's always there for you.
Right. And more to be revealed on the HRT aspects, just to bring it back to the menopause piece. And thank you so much for sharing your menstrual journey and potential perimenopause, how it's not really kicked in yet through the numbers. And that's really encouraging. And
Yeah.
all of your experience is just grounding this practice for people who might be freaked out by it and know that, you've survived doing it for 12 years
Yeah.
and thriving.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And this is overarchingly, it comes back to, it's really been one of the biggest blessings of my life. And the Dalian method, which you mentioned at the beginning, is a whole other topic, but I started working with the creator of the Dalian method in the same 2-week period that I first started putting urine on my body. So for me, like, my two biggest teachers showed up at the same moment in my life, and I can't pull that apart.
Right.
Because they both have influenced me so much, and they both made my life so much better and more enjoyable. And like, all of it, it's just, everything about my life is better because Shivambu and the Dalian method came into it at the same time. And I want to thank you for also bringing this out to more people and being open to talking about it. And I think with the combination of our discussion, talking with Fiona, which is a deep dive down one specific area of how Shivambu can work. And then just, we'll see what other discussions come up. Cause I'm happy to report in next time I get stuff done, and you can report based on what you start to see in your testing. And this is how we build a number of, it's not the same as doing a study, but this is how you do a study on people who drink their own Shivambu when you don't have a study.
Exactly. Yes.
You
Yes.
gather the information as you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's how all science and medicine worked at the beginning.
Yeah.
People went to their doctor and said, I'm drinking milk thistle tea and it helped blah, blah, blah. And the doctor makes a note. This is how it started. So
Yes. So-called anecdotal, as if it's not valid. It's hugely valid. It's real. It's happening. It's amazing.
yeah, that's how all of it works all the time. So it's been a delight talking to you.
Thank you. It's been a delight talking to you too, Megan, and I look forward to reconnecting in the future.
Wonderful.
Okay. And we'll have ways for people to find out about your work in
Oh,
the.
great. Yeah. on
Yeah.
the in the show
Can you
notes or
just say
whatever.
your website?
Sure, I it's expansionhealing.ca. So CA for Canada, expansion healing, all written together, .ca is my
Wonderful.
website.
Wonderful. All right.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.